You check your bank account at 11:47 at night. Not because anything changed since this morning. Not because you are expecting a deposit. You already know roughly what is there. The same number you have been carrying in the back of your skull all day like a smooth stone, always present, always slightly wrong. You check because not checking feels worse than knowing. That feeling, the 11:47 check, the quiet arithmetic running underneath every conversation, the specific quality of dread when a card reader takes 3 seconds too long, has a name. It was not coined by a financial planner or a debt counselor. It was identified by a behavioral economist at Harvard and a cognitive scientist at Princeton in 2013. What they found rewrites everything you have been told about why you cannot seem to get ahead. For most of human history, being without money was not a verdict. It was weather. In ancient Mesopotamia, the world's first urban civilization and the place where written debt contracts were invented, rulers periodically canceled all private debts. Not as a rare emergency, routinely. The Sumerian word for this was amarji. The rough translation is return to the mother. Michael Hudson, an economist at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, spent 4 decades tracing these cancellations across Babylon, Sumer, and early Greece. He found them in clay tablets, in legal codes, in the administrative records of rulers who had grasped one basic mechanical truth. When enough people become too financially depleted to function, the entire economy seizes. The Jubilee was not forgiveness, it was maintenance. The ancient world also operated inside a moral framework that has since entirely disappeared. Lending at interest was considered predatory. Aristotle argued that money, unlike grain or cattle, cannot reproduce on its own, so charging money for the use of money was unnatural. The Old Testament prohibits it. The medieval church enforced this as doctrine for roughly 8 centuries. Debt existed. It was common, but the shame pointed at the lender, not the borrower. Then the direction of shame reversed. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther published 95 arguments and nailed them to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg. What followed rebuilt not just Christian theology, but the entire moral grammar of poverty. The sociologist Max Weber spent years documenting the mechanism. His 1905 work, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, traced precisely how the Reformation attached a new meaning to financial success. Visible wealth became evidence of divine favor. If prosperity was grace, poverty was its absence. For the first time in recorded history, being broke was proof that something was wrong with you. By the time Benjamin Franklin wrote Time is Money in 1748, the equation was complete. Your worth was your output. Your financial position was your character made visible. The industrial economy that followed used this as infrastructure. The factory floor demanded not just your labor, but your agreement that the exchange was fair, that your wage reflected your value, and that anyone who could not make ends meet had simply failed to try hard enough. The advice that descended from this framework, work harder, save more, make better decisions, skip the coffee, seemed on its surface simply correct. It was not correct. It was the most expensive misunderstanding in the history of economics. In 2013, Sendil Mullainathan, an economist at Harvard Kennedy School, and Eldar Shafir, a cognitive scientist at Princeton University, published a paper in the journal Science. The title was Poverty Impedes Cognitive Function. They ran experiments in 2 separate populations. First, they recruited participants at a New Jersey mall, induced financial stress with expensive hypothetical car repairs, and measured cognitive performance against a control group. Then they traveled to rural Tamil Nadu, India, and tested sugarcane farmers before the annual harvest, when money was scarce, and after, when it was not. Both populations produced the same number. Financial scarcity, I'm just worrying about not having enough money, reduced measured cognitive capacity by the equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. 13. That is more than the cognitive effect of missing a full night of sleep, more than clinical levels of alcohol in the bloodstream, more than what we legally consider impairment. The researchers called it the tunneling effect. When you are operating under financial scarcity, your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, impulse control, and long-term reasoning, is not available for those functions. It is occupied, running automatic background calculations that you cannot stop. Can I make rent? What happens if the car breaks this month? What gets cut? This arithmetic runs beneath every conversation, every meal, every attempt to concentrate on something else. It consumes the same mental resources that planning and reasoning require. Mullainathan and Shafir were clear on this point. It was not a personality trait, not a lack of motivation. Put any person under sustained financial scarcity and you get the same cognitive signature, the same narrowed window, the same compulsive recalculation. Being broke does not just mean having no money, it means having less mind. Now look at what gets built for that mind. The financial products that carry the highest fees and interest rates are, by design, the products consumed by people with the least money. In 2022, American banks collected approximately $33 billion in overdraft fees from people who, by definition, did not have enough funds to cover their own transactions. Payday loans in the United States carry average annual interest rates of 391%. These products are not marketed to people who have attention to spare for evaluating compound interest and repayment windows. They are built for people at peak cognitive depletion, people for whom the tunneling effect has collapsed every time horizon into one concrete problem. I need this money now. The less money you have, the more expensive every financial service becomes. Worse credit scores mean higher interest rates. No savings means no bulk purchasing. No collateral means no negotiating position. Every unexpected cost becomes a debt event. Every debt event narrows the tunnel further. Every narrowed tunnel makes the next decision more expensive than the last. This is not a design flaw. This is the design. It was studied. It was modeled. It was built. The research Mullainathan and Shafir published was not sealed. The financial industry reads academic journals. The discovery that financial scarcity produces a predictable window of cognitive vulnerability, shortened time horizon, reduced impulse control, inability to calculate compounding costs under pressure, is not news to the people engineering products that charge 400% annually. The guilt you carry about your balance is the system's most important feature, because as long as you believe your financial situation reflects your discipline, your willpower, your choices, you keep buying the cure from the people who designed the diagnosis. The budgeting app, the self-help book, the course from someone who made their money selling courses about money. You keep paying for solutions to a condition you were handed by the institution running the clinic. 3,000 years ago, when the arithmetic became unsustainable, a ruler canceled the debts, not from compassion, from math. When enough people's attention is consumed by survival, the economy loses the workers and buyers who might otherwise participate in building something. We stopped doing that in the 16th century, right around the time we decided poverty was a personal failure. What replaced it is an architecture that requires a permanent population of financially depleted people. People whose attention is captured by survival, whose options are structurally narrow, whose fees are highest at the exact moment they cannot evaluate them, and whose shame keeps them looking at their own choices rather than at the structure those choices were made inside. The number in your account is not a reflection of your intelligence or your worth. It is what remained after the extraction ran its calculations, at a rate you were too occupied to catch. You know something now that you cannot unknow. Most people feel the anger and stop. A few start asking who designed the subscription.